Hello and welcome to the Playtime with Rufus podcast with me, Mario Radinger. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my transformative Soul Journeys quantum hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy to follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com. All right, welcome to episode 24 of Playtime with Rufus, a spiritual and metaphysical podcast unlike any other. I'm your host, Mario, and as always, I'm so happy you're here with Rufus, Emily, and me once again as we dive into another audience Q&A. And guys, I hate to break it to you, but we are nearing the end of this first season. Yeah. This is actually one of the last 4 episodes. So I hope you're ready for an exciting final stretch of this journey because we still have a couple of super fascinating Q&As to go through before we conclude this first chapter of Playtime with Rufus. And as I announced a while ago, this first season will include an episode where you get to meet Emily when she's not in a deep trance, when she's awake, alert, and just her beautiful, lovely, magnificent human self. In that episode, she and I will have a conversation in which we want to share more with you about this project and also talk a bit about our shared history, so you know how this all began. And also, for that episode, we would be delighted to answer your questions. So if there's anything you would like to know from us, and especially if you have any questions for Emily, please put them in the comments, okay, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and I will pass them on to her. All right, and today's Q&A really is probably the most eclectic one we've had so far. The questions you sent in that we discuss in this episode cover a surprisingly wide range of themes. So in this conversation, we touch on things like why Rufus don't like the term channeling and what they prefer instead. Who or what actually designed a playtime like ours, and how a game designed with the veil of forgetting benefits when avatars, or some avatars, begin to remember. From there, the questions expand into quite profound territory. For example, we explore exactly what makes the Earthian game as unpredictable and fascinating as it is, whether it could end, and whether there are forces that would actually like to see that happen. And then, in true playtime fashion, the episode becomes highly practical again. For example, we uncover new ground in the very popular topic of player guidance. We discuss what a higher frequency really is and what that means. We dissect the concept of life purpose, and we talk about what it means when you encounter obstacles on your path. And let me tell you, Rufus is really on a roll today, as you will hear. We also go into one of the most important and sensitive topics of all, suffering. What it is, why it happens, and how it can be reduced, no matter your life situation. What I personally appreciate about this conversation is that it moves quite quickly, but at the same time still manages to reveal a lot of true depth. And as is usually the case with rich and deep conversations, this one as well may leave you with more questions than answers, but I'm very sure also with a clearer sense of how to think, feel, and navigate more consciously within this extraordinary game we all love playing so much. So if you enjoy tackling some of the more uncomfortable elements of human existence, and if you're willing and open to having some of your beliefs about it potentially shattered, this episode will most likely speak to you deeply. And now, you know the drill. Take a deep breath, open your mind and heart, and enjoy this next audience Q&A. This is episode 24 of Playtime with Rufus, where higher wisdom meets human curiosity. And now, I would like to ask Rufus to integrate themselves into Emily's body so we can speak to each other again. May I speak to Rufus again, please?
Hey,
Hi, Rufus.
hi, Mario.
Thank you for being with us again.
Yes, this is our pleasure as always.
Likewise, it's wonderful to have another opportunity to converse.
Yes, it is.
And before we start, is there anything we can do to make Emily more comfortable or make it easier for you to come through?
We believe that this is okay.
All right. Wonderful. Is there anything you would like to say to either Emily or me regarding our physical situation at this time?
Well, just like every time, per se, quote mark, of course, when we use that term, but every time of the year where you have such a renewing or drastic change in a term of season or part of what you call year, right? You are coming also with your own cleansing system that is somehow adjusted and tailor made for your vehicle. And depending on how quickly those adjustments in your environment are happening and how you are following them as well, then sometimes your vehicle is also making its own adjustment at its own speed in order to follow, if we may use that term, those adjustments in your surrounding. Therefore, you are encountering let's say, unbalance, even if it's not really the term that we would like to use, but let's say maybe shifting in the balance of your inner system that will need to adjust to what is changing and renewing around you. And it could happen in a form and shape of sneezing or runny nose or aches at different areas of your body, or let's say also progressive digesting of the information you're taking, therefore will be significantly impacting your digesting areas and vehicle organs as well. So it really is tailor-made to the vehicle. We could not say that this is happening like this for you or for her, but we could say that because everything around you is changing and entering a new phase, if we may use that term, quote marks, then you are as well following that change. And if you are not at the same rhythm, let's say, then your body will adjust in a more drastic way. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're very wel
Just a bit of context for the audience, because I'm not sure when this will be published.
Yeah,
It's right now the beginning of spring, and Emily has been experiencing a runny nose, stuffed face area, so to speak,
yes.
and I have been experiencing stomach or tummy aches. Thank you so much, Rufus. And if you're ready, let us now dive back into our questions.
Yes, we are, always. And by the way, we should mention that her nose is breathing pretty clearly right now.
Ah, interesting.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, remember we were mentioning sometimes if you are adjusting to your surrounding, it depends on how fast you are responding to those changes. So depending on the energy being in your vehicle at the moment, your adjustment will be, let's say, more or less, how can we put this? Tuned. Yes, that could work. More or less tuned to the adjustments on the outer of your system. And maybe our energy is actually catching up faster into some information, and therefore the clear nose happen.
Interesting. Is this something that any avatar listening to us could do? Maybe call in some energy of their player, for example?
Yeah, they could try. That would be interesting to see. But we are, let's say, believing, at least with our interference right now and experience in her body, that before or prior to her coming, she would be having some, let's say, breathing or stuffy nose issue, like you mentioned before. But apparently, for us right now, we are using the nose, and then we are not sensing any breathing interference or blockage, or yeah, everything is pretty much clear. Can you hear it or not?
Yeah, it sounds pretty clear to me.
Yeah, it is. So we believe that this has something to do with our, let's say, us using the vehicle right now. And probably if we will be leaving the vehicle, it is possible, or it is a possibility, that the nose is again swelling or congested or diminishing the air path, let's say it like that. But we believe it's because maybe our way of gathering information will be more tuned with the changes on the surrounding, and therefore the vehicle would need to adjust more than it is adjusting right now.
All right. Well, we'll see when she comes back up after this. It will be interesting to see what happens.
Yes, it would.
All right. Thank you so much, Rufus. Today we have another Q&A episode. And we're all over the place today. I want to warn you right from the start. We have a very eclectic collection of questions. And of course, I trust that you will have the aspect of you come to the front, whoever is willing or interested in the topic that we're going into.
Yes.
All right. And I would like to give you a challenge for today.
Okay, we love it.
We love that you are able to explain things in a lot of detail. And
Yes.
we appreciate that a lot. Today, however, my challenge to you is let's make the answers as compact as possible while also touching on the core of the respective question.
Okay,
Does it make sense?
it does. Let's see if we can win this challenge.
All
We are
right.
unsure or uncertain of this for now, but we can try.
Okay. I think you'll get the gist, of each of the questions, and also a few of them, or actually a lot of them, they touch on subjects that I would like to devote an entire episode to each.
Okay.
So there will be more opportunity to go deeper into the topics we will touch today. But maybe just for today, the most important aspect of it would suffice.
So cover the outline, pretty much.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
got it.
All right. Let's start with the first question. This is probably a quick one in any case. And again, those are all questions coming from our audience. Okay.
Okay.
You mentioned, Rufus, that you don't like the term channel.
Yes.
And our audience would like to know why, and whether there's another term that you would prefer using for the same kind of action or concept.
Yes. Transmission.
Okay.
Oh, we forgot the Y. Well, we do not like channel because of the way it will translate in different languages as well. And okay, we could see ourselves starting to go into details right now. Well, let's say it is more of a transmission than a channeling. You are not, let's say, the vehicle. Okay, sorry, Mario, we cannot answer that compact. Okay, we're just gonna have to answer it a little more detailed. We're gonna do it fast.
That's
So
okay.
basically, if you're transmitting, is because you're receiving information, right? And you're just transmitting, you're just putting back out this information. Yes. For us, if you are channeling, that means somehow you are trying with intention to adjust the way you're receiving consciously in order to capture a defined set of information that you are willing consciously to put back out. So this is where the difference lies for us, at least in the way that we're sensing the frame of reference between your words and your area in this language and in other languages as well. So for us, transmission, because we're using, remember, Emily's language in terms of the English that she knows and the French that she knows, transmission versus channeling, the way it will be used and defined in both language, it is more accurate for us to use transmission. Just because when you're transmitting, you are not sorting information, you're not trying to have an intention of captivating certain information and put them back out. You're just receiving and then transmitting automatically what's coming your way. Yes?
I see. Okay.
Is it compact enough?
Yes, you're doing
Okay.
great. See, you're doing very well. You're good at this.
Yes, perfect. Let's keep up.
All right. On to the next question.
Yes.
You mentioned, I believe, in one of the early episodes that this playtime has been designed, or it was designed. It is being designed, which implies that there are designers of this
Yes.
playtime. And this
Yes.
is something that I would like to go into more deeply in a special episode, Earth history, playtime history. But I would still like to ask the question or pass on the question today. Maybe you can answer it in a short way. Who are the designers of this playtime?
The designers of this playtime.
Okay.
Sure.
What?
Well, this is okay. So let's say, you know how you're coming to Earth, right? You were offered the possibility of choosing to come to Earth, yes?
Yes.
Okay. A different state of your beingness, a different state of existence, you are also given the opportunity to choose different, let's say, role or possibility of existence, yes?
Mhm.
One of them being designer.
Okay. So
Yes.
to use Earthian terms for it, it's like a specialty or a job or a project that someone focuses on.
Yes, but it's not really of someone. It's more like, remember the Russian doll system, right?
Right.
Okay. The more you climb up the ladder, the more you can have creative ability on a bigger scale. Yes. And
Mhm.
if you go all the way out the ladder, you will find the one that is all there is, right? Being able to create pretty much everything that is. Yes.
Right.
Okay, so depends on where you are placing your focus on the ladder, then you will have beingness and creativity ability being given to this state of existence that will have different possibility. At one point, you will be placing yourself on this ladder and you will be giving the possibility of creating designs for a game. Does that make more sense? It's as compact as we can be.
I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. Is it possible? This is now a question coming from me.
Yes.
Is it possible that the designers of this playtime enter the playtime themselves to experience it from the inside?
Yes and no. because when there will be a designer, there will not be okay, let's put numbers on a Russian doll, all right? We're just gonna put random numbers, but imagine if you're a designer, you're on Russian doll number 10, okay? You're designing the playtime. When you're entering the playtime, you're on Russian doll number 1000, for example, okay?
Hmm.
So you are not the same Russian doll. Does that make sense? You are, as in um, part of Russian doll 10. If you're
Right.
Russian doll 1000, you are experimenting your playtime, but you are not entirely the designer of this playtime because you will have to go back up the ladder of Russian doll in order to find Russian doll 10 that will englobe pretty much way more avatars than just yourself as an avatar. Do you see what we're trying to say? As compactly as possible?
Of course.
Yes. So yes and no.
Hmm.
So yes, you will be able to enjoy and experiment your playtime, but you will have to somehow create version of yourself, multiple ones that would not be exactly the version of yourself as a designer.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are a number of questions coming up inside of me, but I want to apply the same rules to myself, you know?
Oh,
I will try to be compact as well.
well, we can tell you this is a very large subject. And we believe
Hmm.
that once you understood that there are different size of you. We don't know how to put it else, right? But the different size of you, and that those size of you will include or not just your avatar, or more of what you call avatar, or more of what you call higher self, and yada yada yada. Then, if you really understand that concept, we could jump into details for answers. Because for those who are not grasping this, who are not grasping that, okay, if you are part of the player, then you are not the player because the player is an enlargement of you as an avatar. Therefore, you are not equally the same in terms of existence, in terms of beingness, in terms of energy being. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. One has to be completely okay with this, or at least, even if it's refutable for them, understand what we're trying to say in order to comprehend the detailed answer to your question.
Okay. I see. Well, this is something that maybe we could go into more deeply at another opportunity.
Yes.
But thank you so much already.
You're welcome.
The next question is kind of connected to this. We established that this playtime was designed with the veil of forgetting in
Yeah.
place. We are now remembering, right?
Who is
The avatar or some of the avatars
okay?
in the playtime.
Okay.
And you're helping with that, right? In a way.
Yes. We're happy with everything.
How does a game that was designed to take place with the veil of forgetting benefit from the avatars in the game remembering?
Well, okay. This is gonna be hard, Mario. You're giving us question that requires more of just a compact answer. Okay. We'll try.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. First of all, understand that if a game is created with some rules, right? And in terms of your game, remember freedom of choice is part of the rules. Therefore, the interesting aspect of the game for a watcher is also to see its development. All right? Do you
Hmm.
follow?
Yes.
Okay. So, even if the rule of not remembering has been implied and put in the design of the game, it is interesting to see the evolution of it, which is now some part of the avatars remembering. Yes? So,
Yes.
in terms of watching the game, even if the game has been brought with some rules, it is always interesting to see those rules being broken, how it happens, and somehow how it makes the game evolve. This is why we say we're pretty much happy with everything, because if you have a game, as long as the game is being played and you can actually be part of that play by observing it, it is fairly interesting because you're watching something, because something is happening, because creation itself is happening. Yes?
Yes.
If this rule hadn't been broken at all, if none of you guys would remember nothing, if all of you would believe you're just this, bones and flesh existing in this, and that's all there is, it would be interesting equally to us because it will be a game being played with freedom of choice and avatars reacting a certain way with the rules being given and would be watching the same way. There is no wrong answer here. There is no wrong way to play it. You're just playing it. And for us, observing it is amazing, no matter what the play is going toward, no matter what turn it's taking. The only part that we would be, let's say, maybe less comfortable with is if this game were coming to an end. Because, like every kids on Avatar Land, they don't like when the game is over. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So same to us. If we are playing a game or watching a game being played, then it's a little bit more a discomfort to us if this game was coming to an end. But any development in this game, as long as it's still going, is interesting and fabulous to observe. Does that make sense?
It does.
So in terms of your question, is going against the rule a problem to the designer or the observer or whoever is involved in this game without being like directly part of it? Not at all. Because one of the main rules is freedom of choice. So if you're putting this kind of rule in the game, that means you are willing and you are eager to see what's going to happen with Avatar acting on that rule and using that freedom of choice. Yes?
Yes.
You can't be mad at that. Otherwise, you don't put it in the rules. If you want to make sure that every restriction, limitation, or rules are designed that you put in the game is respected, the number one not to do is give them freedom of choice. Because that way you are sure that you can control somehow every aspect of the design you put in them, because nobody can ruin it or break it or transmute it or transform it or well, you know what we're trying to say, because we're going to go get lost in detail again. But yes, your answer, it is not a problem at all for whoever designed or decided to put this game out, just because they put that into the main rules. And other games where you do not have that, they were probably more sensitive or more emotionally somehow connected to their game being transgressed, let's say, if they were not given the intention of the possibility of transgression. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
All right. Since you mentioned that the only option that everyone who is observing this playtime would be worried about, in quotation marks, or that they would not want to happen, is the game to end.
Yeah, it would be, well, because we will have no game to watch.
Right. How big is that danger at this time of our playtime? And has it been close to that in the past?
Yes, let's say it has been even closer to that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And how big this is hard to understand that question, because remember, Mario, like there is everything being interacted. You do not have one possibility of outcome. You have zillion of possibility of outcome every second of your game. Meaning if just one of you at the second change what they're intended to do, it will have a repercussion on so many level of your game that it would change completely the future of the game. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it is very hard for us to tell you or to answer that question because we could say, well, in one of the possibility, you are very close to end the game. In a zillion of other possibility, you are far away to close and terminate the game. And those possibilities keep changing and evolving every second of your game. So we cannot answer you with confidence and being comfortable in what we are saying because it is not a, let's say,
Mm.
set in stone or constant, or it is not a stable outcome. Everything is constantly moving and evolving and creating different possibility of outcome, or what you call future. So therefore, the answer to that question, if we were not going into these details right now, if we were just answering yes or no, would not be accurate just because you have too many possibility and too many options of what you call future for this game hanging out there. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer in itself. So
Okay.
thank you for
Perfect.
that. Okay, this is kind of like, these are multiple questions in one.
Okay.
Feel free to answer them as compact as you like
Okay.
or can. Are there actors or parties that would like to see this game be terminated? If so, are there any who are actively trying to influence the playtime in this way? And on the other side, are there those who try to actively keep this from happening?
Yes, yes, and yes. Just because freedom of choice, you can decide whatever you want to do with this game. So yes, yes, and yes.
Who, I mean, you don't have to name them, but what type of being would be interested in terminating a playtime that is so interesting and unique?
Well, being that wants to just be done with this experiment and go on to the next one.
Hmm. Would that be a being that is in the playtime?
Possibly.
Mhm.
Well, that will have basically a part of itself, yes.
Okay. And you said yes to the other questions as well.
Yes.
Are there beings in the game as well who try to keep this from happening?
Well, yes, with the nuance. Remember, it's not the beings, it's part of them.
Part of them.
Yes.
Right. Does that, okay, I don't want to ask so many questions here, but just to close this, would that be part of those beings that incarnate like an avatar, or that come into the game in a different way?
No, we're talking about incarnated. So, like, basically, if you have beings that are tired of watching the same game and wants to move on and switch the game a little bit because they are tired of it, right? Then they will have part of them incarnated that would just basically take actions in order to terminate the game.
Right. What kind of repercussions would it have if they succeeded? Like, would anyone be pissed, or would that be a karmic issue, or would everyone just accept it and move on to something else?
Well, this is a supposition, but basically, if you have a creation and that creation is destroyed, then probably this is not the best option for some of the being involved in that creation. But if it is done, what else can you do than just move on your existence plane?
Right.
It's not like he would, let's say, dwell on it or reminisce, or just like, if a game is completely ended, then the only choices you have is either to make a new one that resemble the one you love so much, or decided to go play another game. Yes,
Right.
this is exactly the same in your realm. If your party is over, then either you start a new party and you can maybe add some different rules if you'd like, or keep exactly the same rules, or you just play with a completely different game, or you just move on and do something else.
Hmm.
So it will be pretty much the same. Except that, of course, let's say you will still have the beings that would, let's say, love watching the game or love being involved somehow with this game, that will be kind of bummed, if we can use that term, because you're placing yourself at a very human response to something being over. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you are trying to elevate your reaction, if we may use that term, and you're placing yourself on a little higher dole, then something being over, it's not as violently received or as problematic, because there is a enlarged vision that would see the possibility of just moving on to a new creation. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it makes sense.
Okay. So if you're placing yourself on the Earthian realm and Earthian way of coping with something like that, then let's say on our end, our placement and our way of coping with something like that will be completely different, just because we are wired differently and because our way of receiving information and vision stuff is a little broader on the spectrum. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
can see how it would be, let's say, a disaster if we were placing ourselves on a human level. Our game is over. This is a disaster. But because we are not, and because if this game is over, there will be no longer avatar level. Yes, it would
Mm-hmm.
put everybody back to a higher and broader spectrum of existence. Do you follow?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it would not be taken the same way as a human perspective.
Right.
This is the less detailed we can be.
Well, you're doing great. And it makes a lot of sense because I could imagine that a lot of playtimes or games have come and gone.
Yes, a lot.
Mhm.
And of course, if you are yourself as an avatar, let's say if we are using your vision, we could say, "Oh, I miss this game," right? We
Mhm.
could say, "I like this game. This game was amazing," and we can have kind of a nostalgia about it. But it's still not preventing us from existing, right? Just the same way you are when you are like playing in the sand as a kid, and you could say, "Oh, I used to love building castle in the sand." You have a nostalgia about it. You know it's over because you don't do it anymore. Well, for part of certain of you, you
Right.
do, but for certain that don't anymore. You're like kind of like, oh, nostalgic about it. I used to play with sand and build castle. I miss that time. I like that time. I like this type of game. Yes,
Hmm.
but it doesn't prevent you from living your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So apply this to other scale that is not incarnated. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to the next question. This is about the connection of the player and the avatar.
Yes.
And I feel that we have already covered that, but maybe there's something that maybe there's a blind spot, that we have not talked about yet. This is
Okay.
about the ways that the player can interfere in the avatar's experience. We already talked in detail about intuition, right?
Yes.
As like the communication channel. Are there other ways that you can briefly mention here that the player can interfere without breaking the rule of the law of freedom of choice?
The only way that the player can interfere is if the avatar is requiring the player to interfere. Remember,
Okay.
there's the law of non-interference. This is one of the golden one. So if the avatar is not basically requiring consciously or non-consciously, and what we say consciously meaning you're mentally or involved or not, yes,
Hmm.
there is no way the player can interfere. It needs
Okay.
to be somehow requested or called upon by the version of itself that is avatar.
Okay.
But once this is done, so let's say even it's like it's not consciously done by the avatar, if it's something that they're like, okay, oh man, I wish that I could get some help without mentioning I wish that my higher self or that the universe or that, like bigger will
Hmm.
help me, but just I wish that I could get some help. Then it will be somehow perceived as a call upon. Yes?
Okay.
The avatar will not be fully conscious that it's calling on its higher version, but the higher version would catch the call and say, okay, it's calling upon something, not knowing what it is. I believe it's me, and I'm gonna give it a hint. Yes?
Okay.
So this is a way, this is what we're meaning by non-consciously or not fully conscious. Does that make sense?
Yes. I
Okay.
think so.
Now, once this is done, when the call upon it or the request is made, then the player has many, many, many ways to interfere. Many, many ways to reach out to the avatar. The problem is not how the player can reach out to the avatar. The problem is how the avatar is going to receive the signal of the player.
Right. And I remember this is something you talked about as well.
Yes. And this is the key. It's like, okay, if you have a lot of mails coming your way. No, we're talking about actual mails, like envelope, like written cards and all this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Everything is being dropped into your mailbox, but you never, ever open your mailbox. You will never know that you have tons of letter, correct?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same. If you are like an avatar and then your player self is sending you tons and tons and tons and tons of connections, of messages, of guidance or whatever, but you never open this mailbox and you will never know the player is trying hardcore to help you.
I remember from past sessions in which Emily was the focus that you were quite frustrated.
Yes.
Regarding her not making any time during the day to actually be quiet or
Yes.
still, right?
Exactly. Because it's like, in her case, and don't get us started, but we're just going to adjust it. In her case, at least at this moment, because we remember it quite vividly, basically, she was complaining that she would ask to us, and we could hear her loud and clear asking for some help, asking, but never ever slowing down or making space for us to come back with an answer. So basically, it's like you're asking and you're wanting. And when we are sending what you want, all of a sudden you're closing the door saying, nope, I don't want it anymore. I don't have time to hear it. So it is very frustrating because to us, we're also involved somehow in your beingness, right? So as soon as you call upon us and here we show up, but then we have no way to push the message so you can get it, it is highly frustrating. Highly frustrating. So this is why we said the problem is not how the player can reach the avatar. The problem is how the avatar can receive what is being sent. And it's always that way that is somehow creating bumps, not the way around. Because remember, since the player is involved in your game because part of it is an avatar, then he has no business on not being present and not answering your call, right? So it's the way around that is the real issue. Is you who are fully involved in your realm, fully going about your avatar life. If you're asking for something, but then you are not opening the mailbox, this is the only problem for the connection being, let's say, fluid. Yes?
Right.
So to answer your question, how can the player reach out or how this connection can happen, it has to be coming from the avatar side. And this one has to somehow make space or take time or pay attention or listen to its guts and intuition or basically be prepared somehow that if they're asking something, then they also need to be ready, willing, and able to receive the answer.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. My question here is, would it be correct to state that the higher the frequency of an avatar, or the more they raise their frequency, the easier it is to receive the player communication.
Yes, it is true. With one condition, it's still that you are, let's say, opening to this answer, because you could have a high frequency, right? That would be closer to pretty much your player one, probably. So let's say that the message, it's shorter. It's almost like if you're sending something and you live overseas, right? You're sending a mail. It will take longer to get there than if you are sending a mail and you live like the next town. Okay.
Right.
Because the mail has to travel further. So this takes longer. It's the same. If your frequency is a little lower, then it's almost like you're living overseas and the mail has a longer way before it reaches you. But if you have a high frequency, so you live next door, and the mail is actually very fast to come to you, when it does get there, even with your high frequency, you're not opening or you're not ready to receive it. It's the same issue. You're not opening the mailbox. So
Right.
in that case, yes and no, because it has to do with frequency somehow, because logically, if you're raising a frequency, that means you're also making space and time to receive information, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to make sure that you are, and not that you believe you are. Because if you're making all the effort to raise your frequency and elevate, quote marks, per you're saying, right? But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you are still not ready, willing, able, and opening yourself to be receiving information, then you're not going to get it.
Okay. So one is not automatically the other as well.
No, it is not. And again, this is not because you have a very high frequency that you're somehow doing everything better, and that you're more ready and that you're more. No, you could have a high frequency and still being close to signals sent to you. It depends on the day. If it's coming at one point and you're not ready, then you're gonna miss it, high frequency or not. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing you're creating when you have a higher frequency is like you are getting closer from your higher version, let's say. And this we could use channel. So the channel is more tuned, but it doesn't mean that you're getting the transmission.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah. This could probably be a bigger question and maybe even a focus episode, but I'll shoot it out anyways.
Sure.
From your perspective, what is the core or the essence of a high frequency in an avatar?
Huh. Oh boy. In a compact way, Mario.
If it's possible, you can also wave on this question and say we have to go into it more deeply and we can do it another time.
Well, okay. So well, we're gonna try, but we're not. This is not gonna be 100% accurate answer, right?
Okay.
Let's put it this way.
I would just like to give you a bit of context here.
Yes.
You know, because some might say being unconditional love is like super high frequency. Others say excitement is like the highest frequency you can have. And there are others who say authenticity, you know, being authentic to who you really are is a high frequency. And I would like to know what your perspective is.
Okay. Well, first of all, what you're describing is okay. There is two different things. There is you as an entire avatar vibrating as an existence, right? It's an existential vibration at a high frequency. Or it is you as an avatar, not necessarily vibrating as an existential vibration as a high frequency, but sometimes having high frequency response to a situation. Okay? So it's two different things. Because you could be, let's say, you're vibrating at a moderate frequency, so neither low or high, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden you're able to have unconditional love moments. You're able to have a lost moment where you are watching a flower bloom and you're completely mesmerized by it. Or you're having a moment where you are fully open because you're in like meditative space, and you are completely in communication with the higher version of yourself. Okay. Those
Hmm.
moments, if we were taking picture of it, it will be like vibrating on a high level. Okay. But it doesn't mean that you as an existential or as a beingness, you are vibrating at that level as a constant.
Like a baseline.
Yes. It
Hmm.
means that you're able, and this is true for every avatar, to have moments of existence that will be actually a response to signals or reactions or whatever you can name it, to a situation, a given situation, that you could have a high vibrational response to it, you can have a low vibrational response to it, or you could have an accurate for yourself vibrational response, meaning you're vibrating at your constants, right?
Right.
Those moments do not define your existential vibration. They are just moments. The one that you're talking about is like if you want to elevate, or if you want to align, or if you want to like raise your frequency as a, like you say, baseline, so as a constant of your existence.
Hmm.
It's not the same. It's not necessarily that you have to be like full of unconditional love, that you have to do this, that you have to do that. It's not that. What we covered in the earlier chapter in our conversation is basically be in tune with yourself. It's basically dust your door. Is basically make sure that every time you're evolving in this game, you are challenging yourself to better yourself within the game, for you, for the game, for your environment, for others, for the players that you understand you are outside of the game. It's all of those data that will come into place, and that we talked about in detail earlier in our conversation, that would allow you to somehow raise your constant frequency. So it's
Hmm.
not just one thing that you have to do here and there. And the one thing that you could answer that question, you ask about being authentic, this will say yes.
Hmm.
Because being authentic, that means you sit with yourself. You sit within your truth of beingness. You're sitting with everything you are at the moment, and you're respecting it, and you're transpiring it, you're living it, you're existing with it. And this will actually give you a higher frequency access as a constant, because you will have self-awareness, right? So
Right.
you would not be hypocritical. You would not be, let's say, judging or wanting or disforming or putting yourself like higher or lower than you are. You will be just right on the money. This is where I am right now. I'm
Hmm.
my authentic self. And now what could elevate your frequency is taking this authentic self. I'm going to try to somehow better this, and better this first for myself. So I'm going to first dust my doors, but we're not going to go over the conversation again. We just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure to answer the question. All that you mentioned, there will be moments of higher frequency vibration. But if you want to keep it a constant, the one that we can jump on that you mentioned will be authenticity.
Right. Well, thank you so much. That's a
Well,
great answer. And I think a very practical one as well.
okay.
And, speaking about authenticity, I think that's a good one, because being authentic to who you are would look very different in a service to others avatar than it would look like in a service to self, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. But remember, it doesn't mean because you're in service of others that your frequency is higher than the service of self.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is important to understand, because most of the time when we hear talking about elevation, about raising our frequency, about ascension, about all of these terms, avatars tend to believe this is good. This is service to other only. This is good. Good quote marks for us. No quote marks for you guys, because you know what we put in that term. But
Yeah.
basically, you will only believe this because when it doesn't check your boxes, and when it doesn't correspond or match to your definition of good, when it doesn't match your believing system and all this stuff, then automatically it's bad, and automatically it's gonna be the team service for self.
Yeah.
But this is not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Service to self or service to other could equally vibrate at a high frequency or low frequency. It has nothing to do with what team you're playing for. It has everything to do with how you embark in your own journey and how you're playing your own game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is very important to mention. It's not because what you qualify good or bad, which we really, really, really insist on, it will be different for every avatar you ask. The good and the bad will have different frame of reference or stuff put in the bags.
Right.
None of you will have the same version of it. You could have the same foundation, okay? But you would never have the exact same definition of good and bad, okay? So what's good for you or what's bad for you could be bad and good for your next door neighbor. So this is the first thing. Then you really have to believe that frequency has nothing to do with what you call good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with how you're playing your existential self.
Yes.
Okay. We just want to emphasize that because I believe there is a misconception with all of this. The same misconception there was with new means perfect, right? Means good with match my imaginary bubbly words. No, because none of you have the same one. And because you are existing all together, therefore, we cannot grant everybody that definition. It's a must have that in your perfect world, it's your version of perfect that doesn't include others' version. So if you're moving to something new, it is not possible to be meaning perfect. It means new. It means different. It means it's changing. It means it doesn't have the same set of information as what you used to have, right? Same with vibration. It doesn't mean good or bad. It means, like we said, vibrating higher, so faster, vibrating lower, so slowly, and vibrating moderately. That's it. No good, bad, no self or other, none of that. We're just speaking vibration, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you for emphasizing that again. I agree. I don't think it can be mentioned often enough because it's definitely a big misconception out there.
It is. It is.
I remember encountering this concept of raising frequency on both sides in quotation marks. I believe in the Law of One, I believe Ra mentioned at the time that both polarities are, I think they said, raising polarity and eventually making the harvest. I think those are the terms that they used.
Yeah.
But when I heard that, I was immediately in resonance with it. There was some aspect in myself that kind of knew, yeah, that makes sense. Of course, both raise, elevate, and ascend in quotation marks.
Yeah.
So
And
thank
they do
you.
it simultaneously as well.
Exactly.
Because remember,
Yeah.
one cannot move without the other moving at the same time. Not in your realm.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So yeah, thank you for going into that again.
You're welcome.
Coming back to the interference aspect, right? Or like the guidance that the player is able to give the avatar. This is like another question now from our audience. You mentioned that there are cases in which the interference or support is limited because this is what the player wanted to experience, and therefore the avatar will experience as well, right? Limited support.
Yes.
To make it more challenging, I guess, or to just have a very unique experience, I guess.
Yes.
For someone who is such a case, is there a way to find out? For example, could an avatar reach out to their player and say, look, I get it. Maybe I'm one of those cases. You're not allowed to help me because this is the feeling that I have. Could you just give me a sign that this is actually the case, and I will not complain anymore. I will accept it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because see, like you're asking two different stuff. If you're asking your player self to help you on your daily existential crisis or life experience, and the player decided that no, you will be embracing the freedom of choice fully, and they will not decide for you on any point, right? You would not have any answer because you're asking your player to play your game, kind of, or guide you on your game, okay?
Mhm.
Now, it's very different if you're asking your player self, okay, I feel like I have the intuition that I am one of those avatar that you decided to give me completely free will and completely freedom of choice, and that I'm riding my car alone in this game until the end. Am I right? Or is it accurate for me to believe such a thing? If I am, please give me a sign. Then you will have one because you're not asking
Mm.
the player to help you or to guide you in any decision. You're just asking, you're basically telling the player, I discovered your trick. I just want to make sure that this is what I get and I am correct on it. And if I am, then that's fine. I'm just going to play the game for the both of us. So it's different. So, of course, you could get a signal on that one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yo,
that was the question. Next question. I think we established in an earlier episode that there is something like a life plan or like an outline in most cases, right?
yes.
Experiences that the player wants to have or would like to have. Is the amount of joy and fulfillment that an avatar is able to experience during their playtime directly correlated to how well they are following that original plan?
No.
Oh, hello.
Hi. No. This has nothing to do with it. Because as an avatar, you could also fairly enjoy your own game without thinking about your player self. So the joy that you are sensing or vibrating for or incarnating at the moment is not necessarily linked to the joy the player will have seeing or observing their mission being fulfilled. It could be pretty much your own joy as your own avatar experience.
Is there a difference between the joy or fulfillment, I guess, that an avatar experiences because of their own actions or because it's in line with what their player set out to do?
In terms of feeling or sentient,
Yes. Yes.
we would need to remember what it is to feel joy only as an avatar in order to accurately answer that question. We believe that joy is joy, and if it is joy experienced only through the existence of your avatar, or if it is joy's experience as a togetherness because of the connection with your avatar and player self, it is still joy. You would probably be able to differentiate the two once you are on the other side, let's say, of this game. But while you are within the game, because this is your reality, yes, your life experience, you are living and moving and being in this game, then it would be as sincere as the joy that you would embrace as a player. Therefore, we do not believe that the difference will be palpable.
Mhm.
Maybe it will be more on a different layer, more on a different feeling as well that you may call satisfaction or fulfillment more than pure joy. Yes?
Right.
Because joy is a very particular feeling that comes with a very particular state of vibration that is usually high. But if you combine joy with satisfaction, with pride, with fulfillment, with generosity, with a lot of different sentience or feelings or experience, then it would not be joy alone. It will be a combination, a pairing, or maybe a multiple association with joy itself. Does that make sense?
It does. I am reminded of what you were just, or the other aspect of you was just explaining before, that there is something like a temporary spike in vibration, and on the other side, something more fundamental, like a baseline. Would
Yeah.
that be kind of similar to that?
Kind of.
Like temporary joy and more stable and deeper satisfaction and
Yes,
fulfillment.
yes. It would be, let's say, if you have an intense blurb of joy in a very specific moment, or if you are being and existing in a joyful state of being, yes,
Mhm.
even if you are not necessarily experiencing joy at the moment, then maybe this could be more related to the union you have between your avatar and your player self,
Mhm.
because you have other feelings attached to it, not just this pure experience of joy in this moment,
Right.
but a constant blissful of existence, right? Of beingness that is usually paired with multiple other feelings. Yes?
Yes. Thank you. That makes sense. And it answers the question. Another question in the context of life plan. Let's say someone, okay, I'm trying to relay this question. It's kind of a bit complicated, but I hope I can put it into understandable words. Let's say someone has the feeling, an avatar has the feeling that they found their purpose, in quotation marks, in their playtime. But to accomplish that, they would need financial resources. They are confronted with the fact, in quotation marks, that these resources are not available. Could it mean that the avatar is meant to find a way to create those resources? Could it mean that they just need to be patient and the resources will appear, in quotation marks, at some point? Or could it mean that this is maybe not the path and purpose that they set out to do?
Well, could you give us a concrete example?
Okay, I would have to make one up because the question was not more specific. But
Yes.
let's say someone discovers a path of education or training, and that path of training, of official training, costs a certain amount of money. And that person doesn't have that money at the time. Is that enough?
Yes, but we are seeing some distortion.
Mhm.
Okay.
I hope I did the question justice. It's not my question, but I hope you get
We are
what the question is after.
we believe that we are getting the question, but we believe that somehow the question has been distorted, not with your example, but with the way it is wired itself.
Okay.
So we will answer, but our apology, because we are not able to answer it in a compactly manner. We might need to detail a little bit.
That's okay.
We believe that the
distortion comes with the definition you put behind purpose of life. Because you would have purpose of life as in why you came to incarnate in this realm. And this will be, per our definition, the real purpose of your life, meaning the real reason or goal for your incarnation experience. Life, yes?
Mhm.
Now, some of you guys might believe that purpose of life means what I feel drawn to do and accomplish and set up in this experience as an avatar. But this is not necessarily the purpose of your being to this realm. This might be what your existence as an avatar led you to like or to want to create or to want to imprint this game with or to want to legate or give a legacy or to want to embrace because you believe you are good at it and you could do some good with it. But this doesn't mean it is your purpose of life. This means it is something that you found within your game that you would like to offer to this game. Do you understand the difference?
Yes.
Okay. Then, if we are separating the two, your purpose of existing in this game will be known or not, mostly not completely until the game is over. You could have glimpse of it, but it will be, let's say, it would not have problematic. That will be such big obstacles that you will have no way to go around it. This purpose of life, in terms of the reason you came to this game, will be available to you at any time of your game, even if it comes with sacrifices on your end as an avatar to be made, or difficulties or challenges or obstacles. It will also come with many solutions to those obstacles and challenges for you to grasp on within your game. Now, the other kind of purpose of life that is more human like, that is more of what I could offer this game, what I could imprint in this game, what I am drawn to, what I feel like I'll be good at or destined for it, because this is an expression that humans like to use.
Right.
This could come with a lot of obstacles. Now you will have different reasons for it. Maybe one reason will be because this will derail you from the experience your player wanted to have, and therefore you will have obstacles coming your way in order for you to follow a different path. It
Mm.
will also put in your way, because even if it's not the player purpose of life, it is the one you decided, but to test your resilience and your willingness to go get what you want as an avatar, given the freedom of choice. Obstacle will be challenging your creativity in order to find your angle to get to the point you want to get. Does that make sense?
Mm. It does. And the two options that you just mentioned they kind of make it tricky then, don't they?
Yes.
Because one of them could be labeled as I'm wasting my time, and the other is I need to go through this, to pass the test. So
Yeah.
which is it?
A third one,
Oh.
could be also to challenge you to broaden your spectrum and really tune what it is you're trying to achieve. Let's say, in your given example, if you have a human that is wanted to train or to have education because they feel like they'll be good at teaching or manifesting the result of this education, but they are facing obstacle of money in order to get that training, then maybe their spectrum needs to be broadened because this training and this education can be found in a different way, in a different um, form and shape of learning and educating. Maybe at the time they're looking at this only through one lens with one media, that is, the money to pay for the classes, to give me that knowledge and education, to be or give back in return what I feel I am meant to be given.
Mhm.
Then maybe they need to stop being stubborn about this only way of doing it and figure out why they want to train in this, why they want to learn this, what is really taught in this. How can I find this class in my everyday life? How can I meet other avatar that might have some element of this course? And how can I enlarge and broaden my spectrum in order to be educated without having to spend money? Because there are so many of you on this realm, on this playtime, that probably in the human wanting to take that classes circle, one avatar will have mastered this aspect of the course. Another will have mastered this aspect of the course. And the training might be longer. It might be harder because not everything will be given to them on a piece of paper. But it might also be richer because they will have this training embracing experience of other avatar. And at the end, their own experience as a student will be so much richer than what they would have gotten through only this little window, that what they will have to give back will be of more value. This could be a possibility. We're not
Mm.
saying that it's better or worse. We're just saying it's a different lens of looking at what it is that I want to gain with this learning. What is really interesting to me in this learning? What competence, what expertise am I trying to gain? And if I do not have the money to obtain it this way, am I able to find aspects of it somewhere else? Yeah.
Mhm. I see. Yeah. Well, what would you suggest an avatar could do to uncover which of these options is the case in their life?
Well, disregarding of what the reason is, we would say that if an avatar is really drawn to some path or to some belief system that this is what they are meant to be, this is what they are meant to give the game, then no matter what the reason is, if it's because it's their purpose of life from their player perspective, if it's because it is their purpose of life from their avatar wanna give perspective, or if it's none of the purpose but just something that they cannot shake out of
Mhm.
their experience on earth, we would encourage them to just go with it. And if they are encountering problematic obstacles or impossibilities, then really dissect what it is in this that they really want to tackle and try to create other paths to reach it. Let's say if somebody wants to become a shop owner, okay, and sell stuff, maybe one will believe it's because they will be able to provide for other people a shop where they can find vital stuff to feed
Mhm.
them and stuff like this. This could be a reason. But if someone starts to dissect it, maybe they would find out that this has nothing to do with the fact of having a shop and providing. This has everything to do with managing and counting and organizing and having something to keep their mind busy and their mind working, or it will be because they need social bound with a lot of different avatars because they are in love with talking and encountering, meeting new avatar every day, or because they will want to have a home that they don't have and they want to create a place that they could be feeling at home in. So this is what we want to say in dissecting and looking at the real reason you believe you are drawn to this. Because there are hidden gem in one big idea. And sometimes the real reason is not necessarily the idea that we believe we are drawn to, but it's some element of this idea that is really resonating with us. And in some situation, when we feel that we cannot attain that goal, once we start dissecting and really truly understand the essence of the project, we realize that we can get it with many different doors or windows and not just the one we were seeing at the time. Does that make sense?
A lot. Yes. Thank you for this excellent advice. I think this is super interesting and helpful to know. And I'm sure a lot of listeners out there would agree.
We're very happy and pleased.
Let us move on to the next question. And this may be the last one for today. Let's see how much time we spend on it. We talked about challenges, right? There is also suffering, which I think is different from a challenge. And the question is, what is the purpose of suffering in this playtime? Is it something that is just built into the game, that suffering has to be a part of our experience, or is it something that can actually be avoided, that challenges don't automatically mean suffering?
Could you define exactly what you are putting behind suffering?
Okay. Well, again, this is not my question. So I am not able to say what the person who asked the question put behind the word suffering. But if I try to put myself in their shoes and as an avatar myself, I would say suffering means unpleasant, painful, not having a good time, because I can be challenged, but still have a good time. I'm using the word good here again. Well, let's use pleasant and unpleasant. Suffering, yes, is experiencing something that's unpleasant, that's painful, that I would like to end as quickly as possible.
Okay, we understand now. Because we have a very different definition of suffering. But,
Please share.
Well, for us, suffering will be something that is pretty much choking you, that is very hard to bear, that is very hard to move on with, that is very much imprisoning yourself into. Yes, suffering to us has a heavy, heavy, heavy connection with not being able to be yourself somehow because you are limited, because something is piling upon you that is so heavy that you cannot shake this off and you cannot exist being yourself through it. This will be our version of suffering. Yes?
I like it. It's better than mine for sure. You added it.
Is it the same definition that we are talking about, or is it,
Say that again.
are we right on the suffering, or is suffering a little dim?
No, I think your definition is really good. It adds more depth to what it is than what I said.
Okay. So again, we believe that we covered this in previous conversation, but we're not human, and we're gonna try to answer that as non-detailed possible. But we're not human, so excuse us if we may not seem compassionate in some aspect of this answer. Yes.
Okay.
But basically, suffering, most of the suffering have a silver lining, meaning if you're coming into a situation where the suffering from the get-go is because your player self has planned it for you in order to exult out of yourself somehow to create a set of tools that you would need to feed off through your experiences. Example, you came to the experiences and you wanted to be an artist, or you want it to be a compassionate avatar, or you want it to be, we don't know. Well, let's take those to a parent or anything, right? And you are not experiencing any of the suffering. It's going to be very hard for you to be able to reach out and connect and be helpful of a fellow avatar if you're not understanding what they're going through when they come to you and say, I'm suffering, I need help, right? Or your art, if you are not suffering, then it might lack a dimension because it will be only, let's say, one depth and not have the other quality of it. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so suffering could be because it's part of the toolbox that your player self needed for you to build as an avatar in order to have their purpose of life that they designed for you. Okay? So that's one reason. The suffering could also happen because the avatar is fighting, accepting a situation. Meaning, you are in pain. Pain is different than suffering to us. You are in pain. You're feeling it. Like, yeah, let's say you broke your knee, right? You're feeling it heavy. You're in pain. Now you're suffering because what you like to do in life is running. And then you're finding yourself that you cannot run anymore the way you wanted to be able to run, right? If you dwell on it, not only you feel the pain daily, but on top of it, you're going to be suffering from the situation because this pain that you're physically feeling is preventing your entire being as an avatar from existing the way you want it to, meaning running the way you want it to, meaning with your two legs running. Yes?
Yes.
This suffering could be, let's say, we will not say erased because it depends on the personality of the avatar, but could be dim if, first of all, you accept that you're in pain. This is your condition. Your knee won't allow you to run the way you want it to be running. Okay, now dissect. Why did you like to run? Maybe one would tell you because I felt free, because I wanted to move fast on the ground, because I wanted to participate to marathon with other runner, because I wanted to travel, because when you're a runner, you get to travel different country. Dissect what was the reason you really like to run. Then broaden your spectrum and see you like to run because you are doing marathon. You could do marathon in a wheelchair. You would not be running the same way, but you will be running a marathon. You like to travel. This is what you like to run. You can travel by doing different than running. You like to feel you moving fast on the ground. You can have a way to do this as well, even off the ground. Maybe you like to fly better than run. Maybe you like to slide better than run. You could have other way to do it. You like to run because this is the way you like to exercise physically. Maybe experiment different way to exercise physically until you find one that is close enough to the feeling that running was giving you. See, this is what we're saying: dissect and broaden your spectrum. If you're able to do that, that means the suffering will automatically diminish. It would not be eradicated because the pain might still be there. So the suffering linked to only the physical pain might be there. But the suffering spiral that you put your entire existence in, meaning I'm a failure because I can't run no more. I feel like I'm not normal anymore because I'm in such a pain. I cannot live my life the way I want it to. All this dwelling that comes with the pain, this is what creates suffering. Yes?
Right.
In order to tackle that, the only chance you get is first acceptance of the situation. And this is why we excuse ourselves before, because we're not human and we are aware that saying this is very easy. Embarking on it and living it is a different story, okay? Applying it is a different story. But you will have no other option but accepting the situation, because first of all, if you don't accept it, it doesn't change it. It's still there. If your knee is effed, your knee is effed, okay? Whether you're accepting it or not, it's still gonna be like that. So you accept the situation, even if you don't like it, but you'll be like, okay, this is what it is. I cannot do anything about it, but I can work differently around it. And I can still live the life I wanted, working with this inconvenience, tackling this obstacle, and making sure I broaden my spectrum in order to adapt to this situation that I now accepted. Yes?
Yes.
Suffering reduces automatically once you do that. Then, once you find the silver lining in this, meaning, okay, let's say you're a runner, you thought that running was everything that you like and stuff like this. Your knee is messed up. You figure out that, oh, I cannot run anymore, but I can, like we say, fly, or I can do like a wheelchair race or stuff like that. And at one point, you have a feeling doing this that it's so much more intense because, for example, if you're in a wheelchair, it would require so much out of yourself in order to run this marathon that you would overcome everything. You will go beyond everything you thought you were able to go physically, mentally. You will surpass yourself. And this might give you a feeling that you might never had if your knee was still functioning. If you decided, okay, if I cannot run on the floor, then I'm going to try to fly. This might give you a feeling that you will have never experienced if your knee was good. This is the silver lining in it, right? And you will maybe meet some people that are in the same situation as you, make friends for life that you might have never encountered if your knee was still valid. Yes? So this is what we call silver lining that will also somehow dim the suffering, because now you had a shitty situation that you thought the way of existing as you knew it was over and you would dwell on it. But now you accepted the situation, you broaden your spectrum, and you find the silver lining in it. Suffering is now reduced to this: pain. Yes?
Yes.
And we are sorry. Once again, we're not human, but pain is way more manageable and way easier to handle than suffering. Yes?
Mm.
Now, if you're talking about situation where you're coming into existence in a family that is, at least your way of being is showing you that you can get nothing out of them but suffering, that you're miserable, that you are collecting every misery that one can have, that you're in a place that is bombed every day, or like all this kind of suffering that has nothing to do with your physical need, but that is a global suffering. Yes. Your
Right.
only chance of existing in a place like that or in a situation like that is by finding silver lining and accepting it, and then look at little thing that would for a short instant make you forget your misery and make you feel very happy. And again, this is easier said than done. We are aware of it, but unfortunately this is the truth, right? So if one came into a family and this family was abusive, and they will have like nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. And for years, for many years, they would be beaten, or they will have this kind of hard time with it. This is suffering, right? They won't be able to
Mm-hmm.
take it. It happened. They came to it. But what they do with it when they're in age of living out, let's say this family, and take their own way to life, what they will do with this, their experience, this is what would make or break their life as an avatar. Yes? So you will
Mm-hmm.
have at one point to decide for yourself. The suffering was there. I could not do anything at the time to change it. Now that I'm out of this situation, yes, I got scarred. Yes, this predicament wired me a certain way as a human being. Now, what do I do with it? How do I want to create my life knowing that I went through this? And this is when the hard work begins, because you will have to again dissect it. Ask yourself the correct question. Now that I have a chance to move out my family because I'm of age, what do I want to do for myself? What am I able to do? Do I need reparation? Do I need to somehow put those scars at ease? Do I need to speak about this? Do I need to find something that I wasn't able to do for those many years, but I knew would make me happy? Let's say if you were drawing, your family would not accept you to draw, and because you would not have the ability to get paper and crayons and all this stuff, you would never draw. But once you're out your family, you're deciding, I'm gonna draw. I'm gonna find a way to get a piece of paper and crayons, and I'm gonna start drawing because this makes me happy. What can I draw about? And everything that you've been through, even without you intellectualizing it and knowing consciously that you would draw from, you will. And you build some toolbox going through this suffering that, first of all, none can take away, just as much as you build some scar. See, this is again this polarity. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have one bags of shit without having one bag of gold equally. The thing is, if you are not looking at it, accepting the situation and trying to broaden the spectrum, trying to find the silver lining, trying to put yourself at what's golden within the situation, you're only feeding your bag of dirt. You're not feeding the bag of gold, which
Right.
should grow the same way, as heavy as the bag of dirt or shit, however you want to call it. So this is also the job as an avatar who is being put in this situation, which is not fun job for the avatar. Yes, we know. Which is coming with a full set of responsibility. Yes, we know. Which is not the perfect bubbly life as an avatar you would as an avatar want for yourself. Yes, we know. Okay. But unfortunately, it is. Yes. So as much as you're gonna like to say this is unfair, why am I in this situation? I hate this. I don't want to be there. First of all, if you're still there, that means you do want to be there. And second of all, because it is what it is, now what can you do to change it? And again, we apologize because we know that none of the human likes to hear that. especially since it's easier said than done. But this is unfortunately the only way you can somehow turn this into the bag of gold. You have to accept what it is that you've been given and
Mhm.
then find a way to move through it and find a way to transmute it into what you want to experience.
Right.
Makes sense? And this is ugly to hear, we know. For someone that is in the situation where suffering is a big part of their life, where it's very difficult to see silver lining, to find some gold into all this dirt, mud, and very hard to accept when they are witnessing other living their best life. We know. But unfortunately, there is no magical wand. This is what you have to do. If you're listening to this, that means you're at the point where you're aware that you're more just than bones and flesh, right? So that means
Mhm.
you're somehow kind of following the philosophy that you came here for a reason and that you are experiencing all this stuff for a reason. Yes?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
basically, if you're coming to this with this mentality, hear out what we're saying with an open mind and not say, oh, we are pointing and this is so easy and this is so rude. And no, we're just saying this for you because you know all this. Now apply it. You are in this situation. You are suffering. Okay. What is the cause and the reason of your suffering? First of all, let's try to see if you can sort it out and say, okay, I'm suffering because of this, this, and this. Okay. Now that you know, accept it. Because for now, apparently you cannot change it. Otherwise, if you can change it, by all means, change it. But if you can't, just accept that this is what it is. Then broaden your spectrum. Then focus on the silver lining and then feed your golden bag. Yeah.
Yeah.
And suffering will diminish. And as hard as it is to believe when your head is in it and think that this is just like easy way of speaking, if you apply this for real, you would see that suffering is diminishing because you're focusing on other aspects of your life, because you're finding the gold little rock within a mud pot. But this actually is making a huge difference. Yeah.
Yes,
Did we answer the question?
you did beautifully. Thank you so much.
Sorry, well, not compact. My bad. Detail.
It's fine because I feel like this is a very profound question to answer and a profound answer that is given here. So all the time that was needed, I think it was absolutely worth it. Thank you.
Perfect. And we are well aware that as human, it is way more easy to just sit in this pile of mud, yeah, and just bathe in it, and just dwell in it, and just be in it, because it requires such a big dose of energy and will and drive and internal forces to take yourself out and look at the beauty in it. But the beauty exists in dirt. Yes, it's a polarity thingy. That means if you accept that, you also recognize that even if the darkest situation spot, or however you want to call it, there is a light in there. The same
Mhm.
way as even in the lighter building and the lighter life and what you would think from your window looks so beautiful. If you were to flip the card, right, and you would take that life and then the other would take yours, you would both see for yourself, oh, okay, no, there is dirt in the light and there is light in the dark. Yeah. So
Right.
this is only a term of how can I broaden the way I look at my own situation. And first of all, how can I pinpoint what is causing me this suffering in my situation? Yes,
Yeah. The yin and yang, right? It's there again.
exactly. Here and this will always be like this because this is how this realm is wired.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I agree. It may be difficult to hear for some. However, I also agree to what you said earlier that probably most of those listening to this, most of those who have come so far into episode 20 something, they're probably ready to hear it and they would not scream at you, for making it sound easier than it is. I think our audience understands what you're saying.
Yes, and we believe so. So this is why we're allowing ourselves to say that, and we put some sugarcoat on it, okay? Because we could have said it very more abruptly, and probably would have been very hard to hear. But we sugarcoat as much as we could for this one, even if we're not certain sugarcoating is best, but we could understand and agree that for a human it might be hard to hear this. So yes,
But
we are gonna leave it like that. But
yeah,
suffering can be diminished. This is all we can say. It really can.
okay.
Pain is different, but suffering can be diminished.
Say that again.
Pain is a different story.
Right. And I think this is something that we may be able to go into in a future episode.
Yes.
And maybe one day we can make an episode, like a hardcore episode, where you don't sugarcoat anything.
Oh, you're ready for it.
And we can warn.
Like really, really, really mean, like kind of energy if we are not sugarcoating. And this one, at least, will be compact for sure. But we are not certain it will be well received.
Well, we can place a warning, in the episode coming before that one. We can say, come and join us, but know that it will be like...
calling you on the... Yeah.
Exactly. All right. The last question for today, we still have a few more minutes. And this is probably a challenge now again, try to answer it in as compact a way as possible.
Yes.
We talked about avatars being born in situations that already contain suffering, right?
Yes.
And you explained the potential purpose of it and what can be done.
Yes.
What about experiences that seem to appear out of thin air, so to speak? Someone gets assaulted or killed even, or abused in a very surprising way. The question that came in from the audience here is, how much did the avatar that is the victim in these situations agree to be part of it before incarnating? And in connection to that, can an avatar also become a victim of violence? Let's call it violence or abuse, simply out of freedom of choice.
Yes. Yes. This is what we were about to say when we say, is the avatar or that would be the player planned on having this experience. We were about to say, well, it could also be because you're playing the game as a multiple, right? You're not playing just yourself as an avatar. You're playing with other avatar. And therefore, if there is freedom of choice for everybody, you could definitely become victim of the choice of another one. Yes? So you could definitely have both ends. It could be yes and yes. Yes, this could be planned by yourself because you chose that at this point of your life, you would have this as an experience to feed the next chapter of your life, or to see how you would overcome this experience, how it would change you, how it would transmute and basically metamorphose you, or change your game or redirect your game. So it could be planned, or it could be completely unplanned and even like surprise your player self, because you would be basically collateral damage to freedom of choice being applied to every avatar.
Right. So the game of an avatar, or the playtime, not the entire playtime, but the life, the experience, it could be ended without them really wanting it to.
Yes, absolutely. And this is what we said, like when we talked about the layer and the complexity of this game, the most important part is that everything is connected. And if you think you're playing this game alone or only connected to the people that you see around you, you're a fool. You're connected to pretty much everything and everyone. Yes? Like every decision, every single choice everybody makes has tons of repercussion on the game.
and on other avatars, even the one that you're not seeing.
Right. I feel that the background of this question is probably what we talked about in a previous episode. Information coming to light that children have been badly abused by others, and also that people living in a certain country are suddenly suffering because of a war taking place in their region. And I guess people are wondering, like, did these victims agree
Not
to
necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. And this is something that you really have to understand. This is not a loner game. Yes.
Mhm.
This is a plurality game. Like, you are like trillions of avatar playing together. And each and every one of you has freedom of choice as a rule in their playtime. Okay? That means some of you would understand that your freedom of choice can stop where the freedom of choice of the other begins, right? And you have like somehow kind of a mutual respect for
Mhm.
one another, freedom of choice and freedom. But some would not have this mentality in the game, and some will decide, well, since I have freedom of choice, I do exactly what the heck I want.
Right.
And therefore, you could pretty much fall victim of this.
Okay.
And it will have nothing to do what was planned prior to your coming.
Mhm.
But it's also why this is so amazing. Is because, see, there is so much unknown factor in a regulated game that is completely out of control of the being watching or observing the game, that it makes it even more interesting. Because not only you're submitting yourself to your avatar's wanting and desire and way of playing, but you're also submitting yourself to others, to other avatars wanting and playing this game.
Right.
And you're therefore submitting your own avatar to other as well.
Okay. So the impression I get is one that my work has also confirmed to me over the years, that this human experience here, it's a combination. It's a combination of planning and setting up and preparation, right? But it's also freedom, choice, spontaneity, flexibility, and surprise. It's all of it.
Unknown, yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And then we cannot even measure it in terms of if we're taking it as 100%, right? We could not tell you which part represents the majority of it because it will really depend.
Right.
If you are encountering more of avatar that are heavily impacting your game, that are somehow respecting boundaries and taking into consideration your freedom of existence as well, then you probably will have more percentage of what was planned into your game. But if you do not have that, or if at this point you are meeting just one person that is like completely throwing this out of the window, then you could be so heavily impacted that all of a sudden what you had planned could be just 20% and 80% of the rest is unknown and directed by the freedom of choice. Yes. So
Right.
there is no way to measure it. It's just impossible.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent information. Thank you so much. And I believe this is a beautiful point to end today's Q&A.
Okay.
It was so much fun. Rufus, honestly, I could do this all day.
Yeah, we could too.
But time, right?
TikTok.
Earthian time.
Yep.
So I will say thank you so much for, agreeing to come and join us and have these conversations with us. They are so illuminating, at least to me. And I hope that our listeners get to draw a lot out of today's conversation.
We surely hope so too.
All right. Is there anything you would like to add in the context of what we talked about today? Anything you would like to close with before we conclude today's session?
Well,
Not much to say. We're pleased that you're still listening, and we are pleased that you're still wanting to have this conversation with us. And we are looking forward to the next one. And Q&As are good to us, actually. Well, the compact is a little hard, but the Q&As are good.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you trying to meet the challenge today. I think you did really great. And, you can always let me know if something can't be answered in a fair way, in a compact way. So no worries. We can always push a question to a future episode where we have more time.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Then I say, see you next time.
See you next time.
I now ask all well-meaning higher dimensional energies and beings who take care of us, who have worked with us here today, to recede to where they belong, specifically Rufus. We thank you so much. And we also release you to your other duties and activities. Have you ever wanted to work with higher dimensional beings yourself? Then why not join my Transformative Soul Journeys Quantum Hypnosis training? In 4 clear, easy-to-follow modules, you will learn how to guide deep explorations filled with clarity, insight, and guidance for others. For more information, visit thesouljourneys.com.